look back in hindsight, everything is 2020. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it. In hindsight, yesterday and your tomorrow. In hindsight, is so much clearer now.
Welcome to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Ed Mathews, a seasoned real estate investor and the founder of Clark Street Capital. Ed's journey is a testament to perseverance and strategic decision-making, and after over 2 decades in the fast-paced world of Silicon Valley startups, Ed transitioned into real estate investing, building a successful portfolio of multifamily properties in Connecticut and the southeastern United States. And with a wealth of experience and a passion for mentoring others, that's me, Ed is here to share his insights into navigating career transitions, seizing opportunities, and building a thriving real estate empire. Welcome, Ed. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you, Lee. Good to see you, my friend.
All right. So what did I miss in the intro?
Well,
Don't answer that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I was about to say, don't answer that.
Yeah, no, I was listening to it like, how am I going to live up to that? But we'll do our best.
Oh, I know you. I know you absolutely will. But Ed, this is Hindsight, and we like to talk about decision-making, especially in career transitions, things like that, but also in your life's journey. But I also want to talk about what it is that you do. So the real estate investing, I want to just say real estate, right? Because when you say real estate investing, like that is totally foreign to me right now. I mean, I understand kind of the concept, but I'm at that below 101 course, that 98 course in college on it, right? So give it to me small. Let me know some things that I need to know. But before we get started with that and me asking you any questions, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So like you said, I'm Ed Mathews. I run Clark Street Capital here in Connecticut. Family man, husband, father of 2 beautiful daughters, and fortunate to have an amazing wife who reminds me how lucky I am on a fairly regular basis. And I spent about 24 or so years, flying all over the world, slinging software and services for a whole bunch of Silicon Valley companies that probably you and your audience haven't heard of most of them. DocuSign was the last one. That's probably the one you've heard of. Yeah. But over the course of time, I started investing in real estate in 2011, and that grew from me reading the what I affectionately refer to as the Purple Bible, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's book back in like 2008. And honestly, it took me about 3 years to get the courage to pull the trigger, and so we bought our first 4-family in East Hartford. As a matter of fact, I sold it about a week and a half ago. So I got rid of my baby. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was thrilled. And basically we would flip a couple of houses and take the capital and buy a multifamily and flip a couple more and buy another multi. And, over the course of about 7 years or so, the multifamily portfolio threw off enough cash flow to surpass what I was making in my day job. And that happened to coincide with what I was, pretty darn close to burned out from traveling, because I was traveling 150 plus nights a year every year for decades, right? Right. That's a lot.
Yeah, and it's too much.
Yeah, I'm here to tell you. And it's really hard to be an influence in your child's lives from a Courtyard Marriott somewhere in the Midwest when they're in Connecticut, right? And so there was that component. They were, just becoming teenagers or right before that. And I was fried and, just decided that it was time to kind of take the plunge. And that was 6 years ago. And here we are.
So what was the main reason? Just all of it encompassing the burnout, the fatigue of it all, not feeling, any pleasure, I guess, from it? I mean, what was the real reason for it?
I loved my job. Absolutely loved it, right?
Okay.
But it was a couple of 3 specific events. The first one was I was standing at a conference. I was listening to our boss, Keith Kroc, who was the chairman of DocuSign at the time. And Keith is somebody I'd worked for multiple times. He is like, of the pantheon of entrepreneurs, he sits on one of those seats, right? I mean, he is the man.
Okay.
high integrity, high energy. He was putting on what I affectionately refer to as his laser light show, which is him walking in a room in front of 3,000 of our colleagues and lighting the room up with his charisma. Wow. So I was standing there and I was watching Keith talk, and I'm like, he's right, but I just can't do this anymore. And that coincided with a management change on my team. Got a new boss. Mm-hmm. And that boss and I very quickly realized we didn't see eye to eye. And I said, so if you don't want me on your team, I can go find another job. It's no problem.
Right.
And he said something to the effect of, I think I need to think about where Ed Mathews fits on my team. And I went, oh, that's not good. So we hung up and went downstairs. And my wife asked, how'd that go? Because I was working from home on that day. And I said, yeah, I don't think he's going to, I don't think he's on my side here. So, basically she said, well, we'll go resign. And I said, right. And I marched right back upstairs and I called him and I said, hey, look, you don't need to figure this out. I'm going to make this easy for you. I'm going to resign. I'm going to give you 30 days. Yeah. And then, marched right back downstairs, all proud of myself, and said, okay, I did it. And my wife looked at me like, you did what? Oh. And I said, I resigned. And she said, no. What I meant was go find another job and then resign. Oh. So that was the second event. The third event was we had already been talking about the fact that our real estate portfolio was, in a position to be able to support us. And I said, you know what? We need to really take a hard look at this. Let's sit down and really figure this out. And, we put our heads together and decided that it was time to go full time into real estate. And frankly, I've never looked back.
That is awesome. So when did you resign?
January 2nd, 2018. And my last day was February 2nd, 2018.
When did you start building your real estate portfolio?
Right around the beginning of
2011.
Yeah. So it took me about 7 years.
Okay. So, and it finally caught up to what you were making, surpassing it at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you can do both. Did your wife work with you on this? Is she a part of the business?
She is not part of the business. So she is back then she was an accountant by trade. Yeah. And as our kids grew older, she kind of dialed back her work. She's now a confectioner. She makes candy for a living.
Oh, wow.
And
that's right.
It kind of it scratches that creative itch of hers.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
Is fun. And so so we're she and I are very about as personality wise about as diametrically opposed. The yin and the yang, the yin and the yang kind of thing.
Yeah.
Opposites attract is a real thing in my house. And I had asked her, hey, any chance you want to come and join the company? And she thought about it. And she's like, you and I work very differently. I think I'd rather just be married to you. I'm like, okay, all right. So we'll go hire that person. No problem. Off we went.
I was trying to get the timelines because I wanted to understand how difficult it was for you to learn about real estate investing in the first place, right? And then you're traveling 150 days out of every year, but you're still able to grow your real estate portfolio. Right. So how did that start off initially for you? And then here's another more specific question. How did your experience in Silicon Valley shape your approach to real estate investing?
Oh, that's a great question. All right. So we'll get to that one second. Okay. So the way that I did this is I had a partner. So I grew up in the area where I live now, right? Mm-hmm. So half the guys and gals that I went to high school with went off to college. The other half, became tradesmen, right? And so plumbers, electricians, HVAC experts, general contractors. So I had a bunch of friends in the area who I'd known and trusted for a long time to do the work that I needed done. And obviously they gave me a fair price because we're friends. And so I would buy a multi and I'd hand it off to my friend Eric and he would go do his thing and, hand me back a clean, safe, and frankly well-appointed multifamily, a month or two later. And
nice.
Then we would buy I'd buy a flip house and I'd hand that to, another buddy and he would, hand that back to me 3-4 months later, basically a brand new house. And then we'd sell that, take the money and he'd take his part. I'd take mine and go, put that towards a down payment on another place. And so we did that. That I was able to manage business travel. I don't know if I know you probably traveled quite a bit in your military days. I don't know if you've done that in your professional time as well, but corporate time.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of downtime in business travel, and fortunately, Steve Jobs had invented the smartphone at that point. So I was a walking
Thank
computer.
goodness. Yeah.
Thank God, right? And so it allowed me to to be able to manage it from pretty much anywhere I was in the world.
Gotcha.
And so it was a little stressful. It was long hours. There were plenty of times where I was up till midnight, doing scopes of work for my guys because we were about to buy another property. But looking back on that, I was in my 30s and early 40s, so it wasn't like it's not like I was 70 years old and exhausted. I was still still am today, still vibrant, and energy was not a problem. Thank God for caffeine.
I know that's right. Hey, so the second part then.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So real estate is a marketing business, straight up, right? And so whether you are marketing yourself to potential brokers, to potential wholesalers who are finding deals for you, to building owners who may sell their properties to you, to any of the trades that work, obviously you want to present yourself as an ideal client, and so, or an ideal buyer or whatever. And so, a lot of what I learned in Silicon Valley, being a marketing geek by trade, sales and marketing guy, I was able to directly apply what I had learned in technology world to the real estate world, in that I brought to it a whole bunch of knowledge around how to make a website, how to turn a website into a lead generation machine, and how to communicate via email effectively, and how to build a following on social media as that started to grow.
Right.
And all of that came together. I've learned, and I've learned more on top of that, right? We have our own podcast now called Real Estate Underground, and that's a whole lot of fun. But it's also produces a lot of inflow, in terms of, potential investors, potential partners, other brokers who are interested in working with us, other, loan officers, bankers, all that. We get a lot of contact from that as well. So,
okay.
Yeah. It's a basic thing, right? Create awareness, you build credibility, eventually you're in trust, and then you're in the right to do business with somebody. And that, whether you're selling software or you're trying to buy an apartment building, it's the same process. Human brain works the same way regardless, right?
Hey, so, all right. So now you answered both sides of it. I want to go back.
Sure.
So you said some of your friends went into skills. Like, who came up with the idea, hey, let's buy some houses and flip them? Was it like your idea? It was your idea. And then it's just amazing that you had buddies or friends or, people you went to school with.
They're still buddies too, thank God.
Okay, so buddies, right?
Yeah.
That had those skills, right? And you guys were able to put that together and make a pretty lucrative business. Maybe not initially, but I'm pretty sure now it's pretty lucrative business, right?
Yeah, the margins were a little thin in the early days. I'm not going to lie, because we did a whole bunch of dumb stuff. But if we're going to talk about hindsight, that I've got a whole list of those mistakes. But the fact is that we were able to I was able to put a team together fairly quickly, and there were changes over time. People got busy, people decided they wanted to focus on something else, and that's fine. So I don't necessarily today, like, I look at the folks that I work with today, and some of them are still those old friends. Some of them have grown their businesses well beyond what I do for a living. So all the best to them. And some of them are just, people that I met along the way that are a really good fit with our business and what we're trying to accomplish. So, you never stop networking. You never stop trying to meet new people. And when you find someone that's really good at their job and they fit with you in terms of the values that you have put in place with your business, it becomes pretty easy to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I've got a small project for you. You want to try this? And if that works, we'll give you a bigger project. And if that works, we'll give you the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's just a process.
I'm smiling because, you know how to, when you're in school and the teacher knock on the desk and they said, all right, that's going to be on the test. All right, never stop networking. That's a knock on it, because you never know. You're going to find that person, right?
Yeah. You never know.
You never know. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you face when making the transition from tech to real estate, besides your wife saying, that's not what I meant?
Yeah. So, being in business for myself, I'd never run a business before. I don't have an MBA. So,
Yeah.
learning the back office of this business was hard. Right.
Hmm.
And I did a whole bunch of dumb stuff. Right. There were times where we overpaid for properties. There were times where lots of times where I underestimated the work that that needed to be done, and I tell people, the people I mentor and coach, every building has a curveball, every single one of them, right? And so you have to plan for that. In the early stages, I didn't, and so that came out of my pocket, and I had to, that $4,000 boiler that needed to be replaced that I thought was fine when it wasn't.
Yeah.
That comes out of my pocket, and so
Yeah.
that's a lesson learned. And how to use debt effectively, right? So that you don't over leverage properties, and you make sure that they cash flow from pretty much day one, so that when the market does dip, your cash flow wise, the value of the property may drop a little bit, but that'll come back.
Right.
But the cash flow remains fairly stable is the key, because that's what gets you through that, and reserves is what gets you through, COVID was a perfect example of that, right?
That's a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
I wrote down something. I'm going to come back to it later once we start talking about the actual thing, and that's about using debt properly in a real estate thing. I hear it all the time. I don't know if you have a strategy or a tip or a hack or something to keep in mind, but we'll come back to that.
Okay.
But besides that, like, what strategies did you employ to grow your real estate portfolio while juggling family commitments and your day job? Like, I know you talked about you leveraged technology, so you leveraged, your phone, but what other strategies did you use to kind of juggle that, or could you?
Yeah. So the thing that I've learned over the years is applying systems, right? I knew it from a sales and marketing perspective. There's a finite sales process. There's finite, things you need to do, specific things you need to do from a marketing perspective every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year. And so, putting systems in place and standard operating procedures for everything, a bill walks in the door, what happens to it? Where is it sent? Who handles it? Who puts it in QuickBooks? On when do we review those bills? When do we pay those bills? How do we source our variable costs, like insurance and labor and trash pickup, and all the things that we can we can positively affect by simply saying, I need 3 bids, right? And there's all those processes that you need to put in place. And I knew we were on the right track a couple years ago. I took my daughter, who loves sushi. I took her to our favorite restaurant, and that afternoon, I'm like, man, I don't feel good. And I was like, oh no, my favorite restaurant. I thought I had food poisoning.
Food poisoning.
Turns out, I had a burst appendix. And
oh my goodness.
No fun. I don't recommend it at all. But I'm fine. And and so I ended up, in surgery less than 24 hours later. And I was gone for a week. Actually, take that back. I was gone 8 days. And I expected to walk in my office here and see, hundreds or potentially thousands of emails and mail piled up everywhere, and bills unpaid and contractors ticked and residents screaming. And I walked in and none of that happened, right? Everybody had been paid on time. Residents had issues had been addressed. The mail was opened and filed and put where it was supposed to be. All the bills got paid. And I was like, all right, my team's got this handled. They
Everybody
don't need me
what
anymore.
To do. Yeah.
Right? They don't need me anymore, which is awesome, right? That frees me up to go do other stuff. And so that was kind of the moment where I'm like, okay, I think we're okay. We're going to be fine. And,
processes and SOPs.
Yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. And good training.
Checklists.
Right.
Yeah, and good training, right. And so what I did was I put process in place, checklists basically, with like a Loom video, and I would explain, okay, here's how I want things done. And then I'd hand it to the person that we hired, and they would come up with better processes, and then they document those and file them away on we've got a central data, so here's the techie part. We use Teams, Microsoft Teams to manage everything, because most of our back office is in the Philippines. They're not here in the States.
Okay.
And so we communicate via Teams and we, use shared drives for all of our SOPs and checklists and processes and communications and all that. And so, what I found was when I'd hand those processes over, the standard operating procedures over to the people that were responsible, they make them way better, and which is awesome. I don't need to be right. I just need to get it right. Yeah.
Right.
So they've improved the business over the course of time. And, my only ask is document everything you do, make it a video so that you can go on vacation and we can hand that training off to somebody else. The business itself is really it's not a complex business, right?
Right.
It's not simple, but it is very straightforward. You find a property, you do your due diligence, you put it under debt. You make sure that the numbers work so that you cash flow in my world, minimum $250 a door, in a reasonable period of time. Like as soon as you make it clean and safe, you can rent it out and make a profit cash flow wise.
Right.
You put it on long-term debt. So you pay it for 30 years. So you know exactly what your mortgage is for the rest of, for the next 30 years. And you take good care of you treat your customers, your residents with respect, and you answer the phone when they call and you fix the stuff they need fixed. And, you address them as yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm happy to help. Treat them like customers because they are.
Right.
And, over the course of time, you build a nice business.
Wow.
That's it.
You sound like the guy because you hear so many horror stories. I can't get my water heater fixed.
Yeah. Well, that's the clean and safe part, right?
Yeah.
When we first buy a property, we go in and it's called MEP in our world, right? Mechanicals, which is like HVAC, heating and cooling systems. It's electrical and it's plumbing, right? So that's the MEP.
Okay.
And so we go in and basically diagnose and fix everything. So there is no water heat. There is no bad water heater. If there's a water heater that's got 9 years, I know that a water heater lasts 10. Out it goes.
You replace
a new one, right?
Gotcha.
And so
awesome.
Yeah. So we're trying to eliminate problems before they happen, right?
So your first step is you gotta you find the investment, right? So how do you identify promising investment opportunities in the real estate market?
Ooh. So
that's a fun one.
It is fun, right? I love the chase. It's like dating, right? Which I haven't done in like 35 years, but
so you think it's like that, right?
Yeah. Well, I know what it was like in the late 80s. How about that? And so basically we are working with and identifying, the top brokers in the markets that we're targeting. And, we make them aware and we try to build credibility with them and say, hey, look, this is what we've done. This is our portfolio. This is our track record. And, this is the buy box that we're looking for. And what a buy box is basically I want properties that are 25 to 100 units in these particular target markets. They have pitched roofs. They have separated utilities, so everybody pays their own bills. Excuse me, they were built after 1980, so I don't have to worry about lead or asbestos or anything like that. And a whole bunch of other criteria that we provide. And so we give those brokers crystal clear criteria. And when they find something, and they say, hey, I think I've got one that fits the bill. Would you guys take a look at it? We immediately look at it. We run the numbers on it, and I can step you through that. And we get back to them in like 15 minutes and say, good, not good, and here's why. If it's a good one, then we put in a letter of intent or bid. We propose a sale, and some we win, some we don't. It's a numbers game. Yeah,
got it. Did you always use a broker, or did you used to just use classified ads back in the day? I mean, how did it?
I've bought properties off Craigslist. I've bought properties through direct mail and postcards. I've bought properties by driving around and knocking on doors, and leaving my business card in the mailbox.
Right.
I mean, I there's dozens of ways that I've purchased properties over the years, from wholesalers, from people I know, whatever.
But you exclusively use brokers now? Is it
Not
just
necessarily? No. So
okay.
Yeah. So we do a lot of. So there's probably three ways we find properties these days. One, primarily through brokers. I'd say 75-80% are through the local brokers. Occasionally we get a wholesaler who is an intermediary who happens to maybe know the property owner and knows me or one of the folks on our team. And they'll call and say, hey, I've got something. And he doesn't want to list it with a broker for whatever reason. I think he wants to save his 5 or 6%.
Gotcha.
And, would you be interested in taking a look at it? And the answer is sure. Send it over to me and we'll take a look. And sometimes those work out and sometimes they don't. And then the third way, so brokers, wholesalers, and relationships with property owners ourselves. So like in Connecticut, so we've done our homework, right? There are 1,208 buildings in the state of Connecticut today that someday I'd like to own, right? Not all of them at the same time, but if I get a shot at it, I'm going to try and buy it, right? And so we send out, we've got an email database. We've got, we send out letters and postcards once a quarter, depending on the property. Sometimes we send it out more than that, once a month even. We speak at local RIAs and meetups, and we have our own meetup. And, over the course of time, I'm looking to know and get to know all those property owners. And occasionally one of them picks up the phone and says, hey, I've got a 10 unit over here and I want to sell that and trade up to a larger building. Any chance you want mine? And the answer, send it over. I'll take a look. Right. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's marketing. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Marketing. I like it. What advice would you give to someone looking to start their own real estate investment journey?
Educate the living daylights out of your brain.
I knew he was going to say that.
And so, but do it in a specific way. YouTube is a tremendous resource. Books, audiobooks, physical books, whatever, are tremendous resources. Because, in those three things, physical books, audiobooks, YouTube, you're basically taking somebody like me, the last 10 years of my life, and consolidating it down to a 200-page book or, a series of, 12 hours worth of videos of me talking with, guys like you or other investors or whatever about the stuff we do. Right. You can learn a lot just by doing that. What you shouldn't do is go spend, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on coaches courses. Some of them are good. Some of them are really good.
Right.
But most of them are just okay. And,
gotcha.
95% of the people that buy coaching courses never buy a property, which makes me crazy. And the reason it's two things really. One is the way the human brain works. Once you buy the course, you get that dopamine hit. And so your brain thinks you've already solved the problem when you haven't done the training yet, right? So they go, okay, that's done. Check. We're moving on. No, don't move on. You just paid, however many hundreds or thousands of dollars. I met a lady, she's a local police officer. She spent $25,000 on a course. And I'm like, oh, that's your down payment. Don't do that.
Wow.
Don't do that. Oh my God, don't do that.
Wow.
So it's, and the course she bought was somebody who really knows what they're talking about. So it wasn't wasted money per se, but
right.
And I tell people, I'm like, look, I'm a cheap date, buy me a cup of coffee and I will tell you, I'll spill the beans. I'll give you all the missile secrets for, the price of the coffee. And most of the time I'll buy the coffee. Right. I mean, that's
awesome.
Yeah. So I enjoy it. It's fun. Right. Cause I've been really blessed, right? I've had half a dozen more mentors who've kind of thrown an arm around me over the years. And I don't know, they took pity on me or they saw something in me, one or the other. And they taught me how to do these things. Right. And so they didn't want anything from me. They just did it because probably somebody did it for them. And so the way I pay them back is by doing it for somebody else. And so, that's what we do. That's why I do all the videos and I'm on social media and all that. A, it's fun, but B, I feel a responsibility to those folks back there that helped me get where I am. So.
I tell you what, I was going to stop you because you ran right into my next question. You're known for being a trusted mentor in real estate community, and what drives you to help others succeed? So you partially answered it as giving back, right? You had
Yep.
positive mentors in your journey as well. But what other dopamine type highs do you get from helping others succeed?
People ask me like, why are you telling me all this? Like I give them everything. I don't hold
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
back. Right.
yeah.
And I said, look, I'm 12 years ahead of you. You're never going to catch me because by the time you
Hmm.
get where I am, I'm going to be 12 years from now. Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I think it's a big world out there. There are 1,208 properties in the state of Connecticut.
Hmm.
At best, I'll probably own 15 or 20 of them. Right. Maybe 30
Hmm.
if I really knock it out of the park. So that leaves another 1,100 and change properties for all you other people out there. And
Right.
so, if you want help, I'm easy to find on social media and email and my podcast and wherever else. And I'm happy to help because it does. It kind of warms the soul, right? I
Yeah.
feel good about it. So because I want to teach them how to do it right,
Uh-huh.
and I don't want them to waste $25,000 on a course.
Oh, I
Right?
know. Yeah. So can you share a memorable experience of mentoring someone who went on to achieve really good success in real estate?
Yeah, the best examples are people that scream right by me, right? And that's fantastic. I meet, in fact, I've got a meeting tonight where we're meeting 21, 22, amazing, interesting real estate investors. Some of them are at the beginning of their journey. Some of them are kind of mid process or mid journey, but
Yeah.
the ones that I really have fun with are the ones that I met 5-10 years ago who, wanted to wholesale a property just to kind of get the taste and get in the business.
Right.
And they took that $5,000 and then they did it again for $5,000. And then, so they took $10,000 and then they went and bought a property with that $10,000 and they flipped it. And they took that 10 and turned it into 50, and they took the 50 and turned it into multifamily. And now they own 300 units somewhere. I have multiple people that have done that in my world. They own more than I do.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic, right? Because then I learn from them just as much as they learn from me, right? So it's a pretty cool process.
How long have you been doing your Real Estate Underground podcast?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah, we just clipped 125 episodes. I think we've got another 10 or 12 in the can. So yeah, it's been fun.
Do you talk everything real estate, or do you keep to a certain? I mean, I know real estate is a theme, but what can you find out on Real Estate Underground?
So I approach it as school, right?
Oh wow!
My goal is to interview people who've been doing this better and longer than I have. And so I ask a whole bunch of loaded questions, open-ended questions about stuff I want to know about.
Right.
I just interviewed Gino Barbaro, Jake and Gino. If you're in the multifamily world, they've
I'll look them up.
Extremely successful, and it was kind of one of those careful when you meet your heroes. Except in this case, he was amazing.
Okay,
and,
good.
Generous, awesome, good-hearted. Just a really interesting, smart guy, right? And
right.
I usually spend about 25 minutes, and we got about 45 minutes into the conversation because I was like, "What do you do here? What do you do with this? What do you do with this? How do you handle this situation?" Right?
I know.
And so the goal is I'm asking all the questions that selfishly I want to know. But I'm also kind of trying to leave breadcrumbs for everybody else too, right? So the goal being that you're going to come out away from each episode with a handful of gold nuggets that you can apply to your own real estate investing business.
Got it.
The other cool thing about podcasts is, when you contact Gino, for instance, in his office, right? I mean, he owns, 4,500, 5,000 units. I mean, he doesn't need me.
Yeah.
But he does it out of the kindness of his heart and generosity. And I'm sure there's business reasons as well.
Right.
And if I picked up the phone and called him, he might not return my phone call. But if I called or, a member of my team reaches out to his team and says, "Hey, we've got a podcast with a whole bunch of people listening. Any chance you want to appear?" A lot of them say yes. So I get to meet, some really accomplished, smart, interesting people. on my podcast that probably wouldn't return my phone call otherwise. That's
something
cool too.
Isn't that something? All right. So earlier I asked you about, I didn't ask you, I said I was going to ask you about how to use debt properly. Now I heard you say one where you have a long-term loan,
Yep.
30-year fixed mortgage, so you understand your mortgage. What is another or a few other hacks or tips or strategies in using debt in the real estate world?
So the classic axiom in real estate is you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. And that's very true, particularly in multifamily. It's also true in flipping. But and the reason being is that you have to use debt as a means of acquiring an asset that throws off cash, right? So I'll draw an analogy. If you buy a car and that car sits in your driveway and you drive to work every day, that's a liability, right? It costs you $300, $500, $700 a month, whatever it costs, right? However, if that same car is a Lincoln Town Car or a Caddy or something like that, and on the weekends you drive for Uber or Lyft, or you've got your own limo business or whatever, then it becomes an asset, right? Because it produces cash and it pays for itself. The same thing goes for a multifamily. You buy a 4-family, right? So I bought 1115 Clark Street, which is the property I just sold. It's what I named my company after. I bought it for $99,000. And that was 2011, so a long, long time ago. And that produced, a couple $300 a month per door. So about $1,000, $1,200 a month that produced. But I owed, $75,000 on it over the course of time. And so I owed somebody money, but that $750 or $775,000 only cost me, I want to say $400 or $500 a month. So I'm making, let's say $4,000 after I pay all my bills. I get to keep, including the mortgage, I get to keep $1,200. That debt is now an asset, not a liability. Follow? Right? Because it makes me money.
Right.
My house that I live in, I pay, I don't know, $2,000 a month in mortgage, right? Doesn't make me a thing. It's where I live, right? I don't charge my kids rent yet. And it's coming. One of them's graduating next year, so it's coming. But even then, I mean, it's never going to produce the money that I need in order for it. I lose money on that every month, right?
Got you.
Because I'm paying off a mortgage and I'm
paying off a mortgage,
insurance and taxes and all that. There's no revenue stream attached to that. So that's a liability. And so, the goal is, and this is what Kiyosaki always talked about. And really one of the key things I took away from Rich Dad Poor Dad is you buy assets and let your assets pay for the stuff that are liabilities, right? So my assets, my multifamilies throw off enough cash so that I can pay for my mortgage and my car payment and whatever else food and electricity and all the other stuff we need. I don't have to dip into savings in order to afford those things, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the idea.
All right. I appreciate that.
Be careful.
Yeah, I know. You gave some warnings earlier, some of the mistakes that you made, right? So
I did a whole we could do a whole show on the dumb stuff I've done over the last 15 years.
All right, that's part two, dumb stuff Ed did over the last 15 years.
That's a long show.
Hey, so I asked you a few questions. What are some things that you'd like to share with the audience, share with me, some tips, things that I should know or things that I didn't bring up that you want to mentor us about, you want to share?
Awesome. I appreciate that opportunity. So the thing is that, if you want to be free, and what I mean by free is not, I'm talking about time freedom, right? So there's being rich, which I see as you've got a really good job and you're bringing in money and you're doing very well. You're, upper middle class or higher. And then there's wealth, right? And wealth is I control all aspects of my time. I do what I want, when I want, where I want, with whomever I want. And I don't have to call somebody, ask for permission. Well, that's not true. I have to call my wife every once in a while, but that's different. But I don't have a boss, right? And That is what I'm talking about. And so when I look at kind of looking back, hindsight, right? I look back and I didn't do it on purpose. It just kind of happened. And then I realized, ooh, I can take advantage of this.
Right.
Real estate set me free from a career that I no longer wanted. Right. I get a phone call every once in a while from an old boss or an old colleague, like, any chance I've got a job, any chance? And I'm like, no, thank you. I appreciate the call. It's good to see you, but no. And I don't miss it. Right. And, I miss the people. I miss the energy of some of the things we used to do together. I miss some of the customers, because, but, I don't miss the gig. I don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
And, real estate set me free. And so if you are, whether you're starting off, teeny tiny, like, hey, I just found one deal. I'm going to put it under contract. I'm going to sell it to somebody else. I'm going to collect $5-10 grand, right? Huge win. Take that money, sock it away, and go do it again until you have enough money for a down payment, and then decide what you want to do with it, right? You want to put it in the stock market? Awesome. You want to put it in bonds? Fantastic. You want to go buy real estate? Fantastic. Call me. I'll help you. But the thing is that when you take that capital and you turn that capital into an asset that you think about it like, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. He talks about little baby soldiers, right? He'd say, this is $1, and my dollar here is, his job is to go capture other dollars, right? And turn them into soldiers. And so you want one to become 3, to become 5, to become 10, over the course of time. And I know no more efficient way to do that than with real estate, because you can acquire real estate for, 20 to 25% of the overall value. You can buy it well so that it cash flows from day one, talking multifamily. You can hold on to it for 30 years, pay off that mortgage. Actually, your residents get to pay off that mortgage for you. You pay the bills, you take care of the customers, right? Do the job. And over the course of, you can be free. If you get very disciplined, you can be free of whatever job you're in today in 5 years or less.
Wow.
You're not far away. Nobody listening to this is more than 5 years away.
If that doesn't get someone motivated.
Right? Hey, if you love your job, fantastic.
Yeah.
And if you want to do this as a side hustle, to set you up for retirement, which is what this thing was for me originally. Right. Great. Until it wasn't, and I needed it. Right. And so here we are.
I like it. Right. Hey, where can the listeners find out more about you? Website? How can they connect on LinkedIn? Your podcast? I want you to run them all down for me.
I am Ed Mathews with 1 T. Ed Mathews, the number 4, everywhere. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. I'm not on TikTok yet because my kids are terrified that I'm going to go and start lip syncing songs. But so I promise them I won't do that. Right. So I'm there. You can find us at Clark ST Capital on all those platforms as well. YouTube as well. We have the Investors Academy out there. And then our Real Estate Underground podcast is a great way to get in touch. And then if you want to reach me directly, go to clarkst.com. You can send me an email at ed@clarkst.com, or you can reach us through the website, and we're super responsive.
Nice. Hey, so thank you, Ed.
My pleasure.
For sharing. I believe it's a remarkable journey. And the one thing that I did catch, you started in 2011. So thankfully you started off on some solid footing and not that 2008 crash.
Well, that was part of why I was scared, right?
Absolutely.
So just a 30-second story, and then I'll
go ahead. Take your time.
So just to give you an idea of all the dumb stuff I did, right? I bought the house that I live in now 3 weeks before Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy on September 20-something in 2008, right? So I bought it literally the pinnacle of the market. So it shows you what I know about real estate back then.
Wow.
And, so that experience scared the living daylights out of me. And so it took me 3 years to kind of ratchet up the courage to pull the trigger on the first deal.
Yeah.
So
good.
I did.
Good. And I know you're glad you did it. Hey, but thanks for sharing your journey and invaluable insights into the world of real estate investing. I know we didn't go too deep, and that's just because I'm a novice, right? So I appreciate you giving us that extra motivation to go out and recognize it. Look, you're about 5 years away, right, for just being free.
It's completely doable.
Right. So in your story of perseverance, just dealing with the new boss and them not, I heard that before, not necessarily from a boss, but from one of our, and I won't go too deep, but one of our clients. Yeah. And they were like, we're trying to figure out where your company fits in with us. And I'm like, that's writing on the wall. Thing. It's writing on the wall,
Right.
what I mean?
See ya.
So. So your story of perseverance, strategic decision-making, and commitment to helping others is truly inspiring, and I wish you continued success in your endeavors with Clark Street Capital and beyond. I appreciate you coming on Hindsight the Podcast. Hey, thanks for joining me here on Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. To make sure that you don't miss a single episode, why don't you just go ahead and subscribe? And also, I have a quick survey. It'll take you 1 to 3 minutes just so I can get a better understanding on how to get the best content to you. So here that is as well. Until next time, once again, thank you.